Welcome back. It's me again. I have the pleasure of introducing someone very special, and most of you know her. I'm not going to read her entire bio. It is available in the invitation. Ms. Jenifer Schaye is the General Counsel for the Louisiana Legislative Auditor for the state of Louisiana. She's a graduate of the University of Dallas of St. Louis University Law School. She has practiced law continuously for 47 years in Texas and Louisiana. Jenifer has substantial experience in the governmental arena. She has worked as a legislative aide to a state representative in Texas. She was a Louisiana Assistant Attorney General for 11 years. And as an Assistant Attorney General, she focused on tort, insurance law, and gaming law, and all aspects of the administrative procedure law. In her capacity as General Counsel to the Legislative Auditor, Jenifer advises on public law issues and laws relating to fiscal matters, ethics issues, and all public laws which impact political subdivisions and the audits of political subdivisions on the local and state level. Jenifer also serves as a board member on the Louisiana Survivors Benefit Board and as the Louisiana Legislative Auditor's designee. In addition, Jenifer represents the legislative auditor and staff in those matters where they're called to testify and/or to produce records for further inquiry by state and federal courts. She advises the Louisiana Legislative Audit Advisory Council on relevant audit law issues.
Thank you.
Because of her governmental background, Jenifer has broad knowledge of the process of government and the relationships between the various branches of state and local government. Please welcome Ms. Jenifer Schaye.
Couldn't clip.
Okay, we're good.
Thank you. And she can't clip her microphone. So that's part of my resume. I want to thank you all for coming. Thank you very much for all of you that are participating here and came through the Baton Rouge traffic to get here. We appreciate it. All of you that are on the internet and that are watching, I meet people all the time that say, "Oh, I've seen you before." I think, where? Walmart? I don't know. No, you were talking, and I know it was here. But I just want to say, bouncing off of what Lizzie said about branding and who the auditor is, we are really take it as a gift to be your trusted advisor. So anything that I say that's not clear, you help me make it clear, will you? And if it's something personal to you, then I always say, and I'm going to say it today, it's sort of my trademark, if there's nothing else you write this down. 225-339-3871. 225-339-3871. And that's the legal section. Victoria said, I didn't realize it myself. We had to make a report to the legislature that last year we answered over 1,200 calls. And that doesn't count the millage calls that Joanne Garrison answered. She answered about 400 or 500 of those. So it's a gift. I learned early in life that if you didn't like what you were doing, it was going to be miserable. And I can say, honestly, I don't go to work every day that I don't thank the good Lord that I'm in this place, and I enjoy it. So it doesn't feel like a job. What I want to try to do today with you is take these public laws, which are not that easy, I know, to understand, and put them in a real life situation for you. And I have to thank my assistant, Tommy Risuto, Angela Heath, Patrick Bergadamo, Kathy Ballantyne, who are the people who work closely with me in the legal section to get this kind of presentation to you. But I'm not going to be able to give you today a magic pill. I'm just going to give you some things that will help you to do what I think is really important. Walk the walk in your public service, talk the talk, and be in the foxhole, but not so much in a combative situation as in a situation where you're protecting each other that you work with in your local government or your nonprofit, but also helping the people you commit to serve. That said, I know things that I say we're going to have questions. Questions I love. There is no bad question. But if the question is truly personal, like, I hate the mayor, Jenifer, what can you do? You probably don't want to ask that question here. You might want to come over I'm going to be here all day, and say, tell me this, and I will. I'll tell you what I know. What we tell you, so if you have general questions or clarity questions, Patrick's going to be listening with the people in the video. We'll answer those of you on the video. Also in this room, if you have questions, wave your hand and they'll come over to you with a microphone and have you ask that question. It won't be hard for me to stop and answer the question. So what I hope we can do today is be very interactive, and as we talk about these laws: public bid, open meetings, public records, and the Local Government Budget Act. Let's simply say in common terms, what is this? Public bid is how do you use public money. Open meetings is the business of conducting public affairs. Public records is keeping public documents. The Local Government Budget Act is planning a budget that is use of the public money. You're smart. What word kept coming up? Public. Public. That's the thing for you to remember. If you remember that, and if that is your context in everything I'm going to talk about, you'll go to the books, and I'll go to the books with you, as will Patrick and Angela, and we'll say, okay, how many days do I have to do this? Or what can I purchase from the local vendor? Or how do I notice the meeting? If you can remember in that context, as you get particular answers, what's the main word? Public. What does that mean? That means it ain't mine. It's the public's. It's their money, it's their building, it's their book, and I am, this is the one legal word that I use, fiduciary. I am the trustee. I am the one who holds it for, with this hand, it's closed, but I realize it is someone else's money. It is not mine. You have that concept. Then, if somebody asks you to do something, in the gut of your stomach, you're going to go, that's not public. That doesn't feel right. Or you see yourself not liking someone who's asking for a record for the 55th time. You say, why do I have to give them that record? Because it's a public record. It's not mine. I tell myself, and I tell people, Patrick and Angela and Tommy, Kathy, and they do it honestly better than me. I try to answer a call the same at 4:50 as I do at 8 a.m. or 8:30. That's important, because the person who calls me, that's their important question. As you work as public servants, then you got to remember you're a trustee. You're holding their stuff, their money, their assets. And so the person at 8 deserves to be treated with respect, and so does the person that calls later. That's what some gentleman came up to me and said, I saw you were educated in, where are you? The one that came up to me. There he is, educated in Texas. You know what I like coming back to Louisiana? I love crawfish, but no, more than that. I love LSU, more than that. More than that is that in Louisiana, with the Napoleonic Code and with our tradition, we are a community of people. We still have great diversity. We have diversity, which I think is wonderful. We have differences of opinion, but Louisiana law and these laws that I'm going to talk to you about now are all based on the concept of we are a community. We're a community of people who are doing a job for our government, of our government, and it's by the people. by the people. I'm one of the people, as are you. So let's look now at what are the common elements to all of these laws. The common elements are public participation. Nothing can be done without public participation. Also, transparency. What is transparency? What it means is, in simple terms, and how I look at it, is that I have to be doing my work, realizing that 5 minutes from now or 5 years from now, someone can look at my files. I have to be accountable with those. If I was asked a question, I have to answer it. If I did if I did a contract, I have to be accountable for what I chose to put in that contract. Now, in record keep, that all boils down to all of these are involved in record keeping. Now, I'm gonna make a confession to you. I am not a good record keeper at my house. No. I don't have family, except I have a lot of friends that I consider family, but I have this little dog, Happy. Now, Happy doesn't worry how I do the bills. He just knows he's gonna get treats and get paid. And that's okay. If I stack the bill on a chair at my house and I say, Hap, don't talk to me now, I'm getting ready to pay our bills. Or he'll start barking, I'll say, dude, if you bark, I can't think. Don't do that. We gotta do this. But I'm at my house, at my office, at our office. You can ask Tommy. I am conscientious about record keeping. Where are the records? Do we have them in paper? Yes. But do we have them electronically? Absolutely. And I just say to you, if you do that with the spirit of the public participation, you're not going to have a problem. You're going to know that you have that record, that you documented that transaction. It is, that insurance thing that's always on TV to buy insurance. Most important words, price, price, price. Most important words here is to document, to document, to document. And I urge you to have good programs on your computers that will help you with that. But what happens? What are the things that will X out the good things on the left side? Notice I put the good things on the left because I just want to say it doesn't matter left or right, you got to do those things. What are the things that cause you problems? A smoky-filled room, you say? Well, I don't ever smoke. What's that? That's the term for you can't go and turn off the lights and do it in private. You can't think that you can do the business of your town by shutting the door. It has to be open. It has to be transparent. It has to be accountable. They have had we have had all kind of scandals in our state, in the United States, where people did things that were done in secret. Because why? To benefit themselves or their friends. So anything that looks closed is generally a problem. Misplaced ownership is what is owned, what are the assets? They are not the assets of individual elected officials or individual public employees. It is the assets of the town. Now, Article 7, Section 14 is the part in the Constitution which says public money, except for a few exceptions, cannot be loaned, pledged, or donated. What does that mean? That means even if I think that Joanne Garrison is doing a great job as the millage manager, as teaching everybody about millages and how to do those in the state, it's not, I can't gift her with something with public money. Can I gift her with my own money? Of course. But can I gift her with public money? No. But is she entitled to all of the rights that all public employees have, the right to be evaluated, the right to get merit increases. Yes, but that gets confused, and like we just had Mardi Gras, and just had somebody call me, and they said, look, can we give the money for the Mardi Gras parade from our town? Can our town do the Mardi Gras parade? Well, what did I ask? I said, is it a benefit to your town? Well, it is. But does it look like a gift or a gratuity to a certain group? Well, it is that. Therefore, you can't do it. What I just did for you is to Cabela reasoning. Cabela was a test that the Louisiana Supreme Court did in 2006. And it said, can you somehow, sometimes, give public money to a private or other public entity? Answer, yes, if you can meet this criteria. Is it part of my duty to do that? Is it only going to benefit one person or a small group? And am I anticipating that I'm going to get something back from my town? Now tell me, how can I do that? When would I do that? Well, suppose you have a recreation district in your town. That recreation district, or I say a recreation club, that's not part of your town. But that club wants to provide summer employment to kids in the town, right? And that employment is going to keep those kids off the street. It's going to go to the public safety of this town, this village, this community. So, is it my duty as a town to provide for public safety? Yes. Second, is it a gift just to one person? No. Am I going to get some benefit as a town from that? Yes. It's a public safety. It's going to help the kids of that town. Does that make sense to you? So you go through things like that that will help you to understand when you do it and when you don't. And when there's problems, you call us and we'll help you. Our issue that we always tell you, and I'll tell you this from now, and I'll tell you on the phone if you call me. Give me an opinion, Ms. Schaye. Write it down, would you? Because we're going to consider it at the council meeting. And I've been at the auditor's office 25 years, and about the first month I was there, I did that, and I got calls from ethics, and I got calls from the AG's office, and I realized that we're not the AG, we're not the Board of Ethics. We're giving you our best opinion, the opinion that we think will help you with your audit and to serve your people best. But if you need something written, I'm going to get Patrick or Angela or myself to find you a good AG opinion or a good court case that's going to help you.
And Jenifer, we have an online question. You have time for it?
Yes.
What about purchasing gift cards as prizes for a coloring contest?
I would probably not do that because that doesn't seem to be the duty of the town. Is it a good work? Not every good work is a duty of the town. The question like that is, can we advertise in the bulletin, or I call it a bulletin, some brochure that's put out for the high school graduation? Probably not. That seems like a good work, but it's not the duty of the town. Does that make sense? I hope so. Thank you for that question, whoever asked that question. Now, let's go on to, somebody's going to keep charge of my time. When I have like 10 minutes, you're going to tell me, please. How do I respond on a daily basis? Here's what I do. Here's what I suggest. I suggest first, you plan today what you're going to do tomorrow. Plan today what you're going to do tomorrow. That's different now than me and Happy sitting at the dining room table. I'm just doing what I do. That's kind of spontaneous. When you are in a public position, you want to plan. And it's not big fancy. It's like, tomorrow I'm going to do boom, boom, boom. That's it. And then whatever you say you're going to do, my advice is the next day when you get there, you begin to execute that. And you record what you did so that you know what you said you were going to do, what you did, you recorded it, and you kept it, and you have a record of it. Now, to me, that relieves stress. That gets you in a situation where you're in a kind of like on the train, you're moving, and you're not going into just spontaneous activities. Public Works has lots of components. But it's not to be spontaneous. It is not shameful to say, I do not know. People ask me, you ask me, legal questions all the time that I often have to say, I gotta read it, I gotta go to the books, I gotta study up, and I've been doing it a long time. But it's why they call it the practice of law. You never know everything. If you find yourself thinking you know everything, step back, go home, take a day off, and realize something's happened. I gotta go. I gotta get a fresh start. And an analysis of that is, do you know where most traffic accidents happen with people? About 20 to 25 miles from their house. Why? Because it's so routine that you do it, you do it, you do it. And you don't think about it. Now, routine is good, but you have to freshly think about it. We answer, I don't know, I can't really tell you, I think several hundred at least, public records requests every year for all kinds of things. I look at every one of those and consider it because I can't be routine. Do I have a template that answers it? Does Tommy come in? Tommy's generally the first line on that, and say, what template do you think we ought to use for this? And we look at it and we then decide. So it doesn't mean you don't have certain practices, but you have to have a fresh approach. If you don't, you're going to be like that traffic accident. Boom, it's going to hit you in the face. Okay, that said, any questions? We'll keep going. Now we're going to go to our first thing, public bid law. I was thinking last night, early this morning when I was reading over stuff, I've given talks on public bid every year that I've been with the auditor's office. They sent me, the first time they sent me to give a talk on public bid, I went to St. Landry Parish. Is anybody in here right today from St. Landry Parish? All right, Olivia is. Well, that was a tough group. Those commissioners in St. Landry Parish, they were tough. And I went with the first assistant attorney. No, he didn't go with me the first time. Grover Austin, who has since passed away, he knew everything. I mean, he really did. I thought he was a great CPA and a great public servant. And he sent me to St. Landry Parish, and I mean, those fellas, they really gave me a run for my money. I got in my car, and I thought, I cannot get back to Baton Rouge fast enough. I was scared to death. So since then, I've given many other talks on public bid, and I still think about that talk. The next one I gave was in Houma, and it was a group of people that weren't real interested in what I had to say either. But I gave it. And I kept trying to get it on public bid so that I would give you the essence of public bid. In my mind, this is the essence. Today, I may change tomorrow. Today is that you have to remember in public bid situations, what we're always looking at are arm's length transactions. If you are not in a public bid situation and you want to, in your private business, give the contract to your nephew, that's okay. But if you're in a public bid situation, you're looking at arm's length transactions. Why? Because you're the trustee of the public money and you're trying to get the best person to do it at the lowest price, and it's not going to be your friend or a person in your family. It's also that you're going to give notice requirements. Why do we do that? So that everybody on the planet can know that we need this product. Everybody on the planet knows we need to build this building. You say, that's dumb. That delays me 30 days. Yes, it does. It delays you. It is because we're trying to be unbiased, unfettered by our own personal biases or by my likes and dislikes of a person. Then I say, in today's world, every public bid you give, you're going to use electronic means. You're going to be placing that on your computer. You're going to figure out what you need to put in that bid. So that's always going to happen. Arm's length, public notice, use of electronic equipment. Now, I say to you, to myself, when I just did a major contract that didn't have a public bid because it was a contract for services, which I'm going to kind of skip down to that. But whether it's a contract for services, which are not subject to the public bid, or whether it's my public bid, when I start that process, figure it out, take some time, sit by the lake, sit in your car, whatever makes you happy, so that you know exactly what you want, because that's what they're bidding on. People will say, you know, I didn't know I needed 60 of these. I thought I only needed 20. Well, can I just have them add another 20? They got the bid on 60. Can I have them add another 20? No, because the guy who didn't win might have given you a better price had he known you were going to get 80, right? Okay, so you have to be on that possibility of putting all your alternatives in there. I make a mistake, what do? They came in too high. What do? I say, start again. Because you don't have the money, it's against the law to start or to enter into a contract or start a construction project if you don't have the money. And people are so disappointed and they go, well, what can I do? Well, you could have done it in alternatives. And that's a legal way to do for a project or for if you wanted objects, materials and supplies. But if you didn't do that, start again. Because you know what'll stop your public bid the quickest? The guy who lost or the lady who lost. They know what you put in better than you know what you put in. And they could stop it. So that's important. What about RFP? Requests for proposals. When can I use those? You can use those for anything that was under the public bid minimum. You can also use those if you're purchasing electronic type equipment. And I urge you to use the RFP for that. Why? Well, I'm looking at some of y'all like Thomas Horn. I know him, and I know he's real good with computers. But some of us just know I need this computer, but I don't know all the ins and outs of it. I couldn't put down all the specs. So what I say in an RFP is I need 100 computers. I need them to do such and such. I need them to have this much memory, whatever. And then what happens, I put that out as a request for proposal. And then as I'm putting it out, I have maybe 3 or 4 factors which every proposer knows I'm going to use that is going to be their judgment points, one of which might be price. And so in that situation, I can take one that's a higher price but fits my other criteria better. Does that make sense? Now, you can never do that on a public building that's $250,000 or more. That you're going to have to build. Okay? We're with me? All right. Now, what we did next was we tried to put out some questions that we get a lot in our work. I have till what time? 11:10. I might give you a little break in between. You don't have to listen to me this long. Let's talk about the questions that we get. Can public bid be avoided entirely? I just don't want to do it. I had some CPAs call me recently. They said, Jenifer, the head of this, I want to say entity, because I don't want to divulge everything. The head of this entity has told all his people, I don't give a blankety blank about public bid. Go buy the computers. I don't give a blankety blank about public bid. Do this public works project. The people in the office, what are they doing? Their pens are shaking. They know that's wrong. What do they say? So they went to the auditors. Oftentimes people use the auditors as sounding boards, and because they're in their offices a lot when they're doing the audit. What do? I say, I don't want you to lose your job, but you're going to have to write a memo or something if the guy or lady won't bend on that says, I was told not to follow the public bid law. Now, is that a CYA? It is. Maybe the person didn't understand. In this case that I'm telling you about, that person understood. They just said they were over that entity and they weren't going to follow the public bid law. Now I'm going to tell you what's getting ready to happen. The world is getting ready to drop on the head of that agency. Might take a year, might take 6 months, but that's not. We're getting allegation after allegation after allegation on that. All right? So is CPI going to change the public works threshold in 2025? That law got changed in 2020, I think, that as of 2025, they were going to use the Consumer Price Index to raise the minimum for public bid on $250,000, and that would go into effect February 1, 2025. Far as we know, and Patrick is an expert at looking at the Louisiana Register, the Office of Facility Planning and Control, who's in charge of that, has not raised the 250. Should they? I got a question. Aren't they supposed to? Should they? That all I can say is, I'm going to stay in my lane. You heard me? and 250 is what they said. Now, in this session of the legislature, which is coming up in April, could they change that? Yes. Could facility planning and control change their minds to and publish? So far they haven't. So 250 is your limit. Can a public entity purchase from a qualified group purchasing entity without bidding? Answer is yes, if you're a hospital service district, if you're a school board, or if you have a public safety agency. In all of those things, there are specific rules as to the group who is a qualified group purchasing agent. With hospitals, you got to be 15 hospitals using it nationwide. With schools, 2 schools using that qualified purchasing agent, and in public safety groups, 2 people using it. Now, do you have to use it? No. But say you're not one of those. Say you're a municipal. How many of y'all are towns and villages? Okay. Well, group purchasing isn't available to you. It isn't. So, and even those of you who can use it under those specific circumstances, when Airhead Joe walks into your office and says, I got a deal for you on a car, and everybody in Texas is buying from me, be suspect, okay? Be suspect. If Airhead Joe is not a qualified purchasing group under our rules, or is not on the state purchasing contract, maybe offer him a bottle of water and say goodbye. All right? Or tell him he can publicly bid it. But you cannot purchase from him. Okay? Does that make sense? Now, let me just simply say, all purchasing, all building has to keep in mind Article 7, Section 14 of the Constitution. So I want to buy water for our school, for our teachers. Can I do that? Probably you can. But when you're making that purchase of water or paper clips or pens or whatever, Article 7, Section 14, you're not going to pay $5 for that bottle of water. You just have to get the best price. And I think I think that it's not that hard now on the internet, because you can go to Amazon or somebody and see how much it costs and get 2 or 3 quotes that you place in your file and say, that's why I purchased that water. You heard the term sole source. I get that, not so much anymore, but we did more. In this day and age of the internet, there are very few sole source items, if any. So, somebody says, I am the only one who makes this particular microphone. Really? Let me turn to my computer. I can find 5 other people who make this microphone, right? So, unless you have adopted the state procurement code and they use sole source, sometimes you can't use it. Let's talk a minute about, before I go to this change over from purchasing materials and supplies. If you are purchasing materials and supplies, you have to think about your whole year. You're not just thinking about today. If you can anticipate, I'm going to use this many paper clips all year, that's what you ought to be thinking about in your purchase. Okay? Not just little segments. Let's look at the 4th question. Can a public entity execute a change order requested by its contractor or its contracted vendor to address increases in the vendor's cost for materials. Increases. The guy said, I can give you these computers at this price. Chips are made in Canada. I'm just making this up. So all of a sudden, he's got a tariff on those chips. Can he pass the cost of that tariff on to you? What do you think? How many people think he can? How many people say no? Good, you won. Can't. Public bid is public bid. A contract is a contract. I'm anticipating with some of the, not to get political, but the reality is, with some of the tariff issues, we're going to see this. Lizzie and it referred to COVID. After COVID, and it's got settled off some, when people were building buildings, guess what was going up in price? Steel. So they came back and said, steel went up 15%. Can you increase my contract by 15% for that steel? What's the answer? No. Now they say, okay, I can't finish the building. Okay. Oh, geez. They're in default on the contract. So you create a great public bid, therefore you should be able to create a great contract that has provisions in it for what happened to you when things are not completed, when products are not delivered. I hope that makes sense to you. So it goes to my last question. Can a public bid be negotiated? No. Public bid is meant to say, at arm's length, with a reasonable time, you give me this price. Now, can I never change? Well, you build in a building and they found out there was some kind of termite problem. So they had to do a different kind of foundation. What's that called? Change order. And change orders should be written and must be endorsed by you and by them. And if it goes to 10% of the project, it has to be recorded. I think it should be recorded no matter. I think the contract should be recorded no matter with the clerk of court. It's transparent, it's accountable. Any questions on public bid? Oh, wow. Either they all went to the bathroom or I was clear. Was I clear? Clear on public bid? Okay. Now, open meetings law. Oh, I got a question way in the back. Can somebody give her a microphone?
Hi, my question is about public meetings. Public bid. Is there a distinction between, this relates to advertisement, between calendar days and working days?
Between what?
Advertisement for calendar days and working days. Yeah. Is there a distinction?
Yeah. You're gonna, when you're advertising, unless the law says otherwise, you're gonna skip Saturdays, Sundays, and holidays to get your time. And that fits into what I'm getting ready to talk about, open meetings law. Open meetings law, you have to do, advertise 3 times if public bid, but in open meetings law, you have to advertise only once, but you also have to, post it in the place of the meeting or the official site of the entity. So open meetings law requires a 24-hour posting. 24 hours from the time you're going to have the meeting, even if it's a special meeting. Only if it's an emergency meeting would that go away, but that'd be very rare. That'd be in a catastrophic event. Ordinarily, in an open meetings, you're going to have a situation where you're going to you're going to advertise for 24 hours before the meeting. What are you going to advertise? Now in open meetings, you're going to advertise exactly what's going to happen at that meeting. Yeah, you hear me? Exactly what's going to happen at that meeting. We're going to review the minutes of the past meeting. We're going to consider resolution number 1, which is bunkety bunk. We're going to consider and vote on resolution number 2, which is bunkety bunk. You know, and we're going to go into executive session to decide if we want to retain Jenifer Schaye as general counsel. All of that, that squeak was somebody don't want to retain me. All of that is clearly stated in your agenda. Your agenda should be exactly what's going to happen at the meeting. Now, okay, if we can go through those questions, if that's okay. Can people be excluded from a meeting? If they're rabble-rousers, you're going to have security, and you don't have to have a meeting with rabble-rousers. But ordinarily, an open meeting is an open meeting. People come. What do you say? People say, well, you know, Jenifer comes and she talks for 30 minutes asking her question. I want to have rules. Rules that say 3 minutes for a talk. No offense, Ms. Schaye, but your time is up. Sits down. You're going to give people the opportunity to talk at a meeting, but not, you know, abusively. Does that make sense? What about executive sessions? Who is allowed to be present at executive sessions? Allowed to be present is all of the folks that are on the council. The council can invite the mayor to be in executive session. They can invite their lawyer to be in executive session. And say I had an executive session and I'm going to consider whether I want to retain Jenifer as lawyer. I say, I don't want you to talk about an executive session. I want you to talk about it in the front of everybody. Can I do that? Yes. If the person doesn't want you to talk about them in the front of everybody, are they automatically entitled to go to the executive session? Answer, no. But if they want to, you have to give them 24 hours notice too that you're going to have an executive session about them. In executive session, the law gives you the 3 or 4 reasons, 4 I think, that you could go in executive session. The most common is personnel. Next is litigation. You've gotten a letter, somebody's going to sue the town. Can you go in executive session to talk about that? Yes. You can never vote in executive session. People will say to me, you know, we just can't do business in open. So many people don't understand this. Well, that's your job as a public official to help them understand. The rules I've talked about the rules for posting minutes, 24 hours, exactly, I'm sorry, I jumped to minutes. Thought I was saying agenda. The rules for posting minutes, you get them posted on your web at least 20 days after they're posted in the newspaper. It's supposed to be posted in the newspaper 10 days after the meeting.
We have a question.
Not verbatim minutes, but summary. Sorry.
We have a question, Jenifer.
I have a question about the posting of the agenda for a meeting. So state law says 24 hours.
Yes, ma'am.
But if you're a home rule charter parish and your home rule charter says 48, 48 is the standard, right?
That's right. Your home rule charter, that's a very good question. If people on the internet, I hope, would hear it. Home rule charter says the posting of the meeting has to be 48 hours. State law says 24. You would follow the home rule charter because it's stricter than state law. If your home rule charter said you just have to post it 12 hours before, that wouldn't work. It's only if it's stricter than state law. Thank you, that's a very good question. What are the right, I talked about the person being considered. Who wins in court when there's an open meetings question? We're a community, we're built on the Napoleonic Code. Who wins in court in open meetings is the person who challenges you, usually. Because the open meetings law statute says is to be considered liberally in favor of the person. Now, we have this sixth question on here about the ADA, because that's Americans with Disability Act, because in the last year or two, they've passed some legislation making explicit what maybe many of you were doing before, is that you make your meetings accessible to people who have disabilities. What's really added, I think, more is to say that they can participate in the meetings. They're thinking telephonically or some kind of Zoom. If you don't have that, you have to figure out a way you can accommodate them. And you say, oh, wait, if he has the flu, do I have to accommodate him? The public. I say, no, if it's an ADA type thing, it limits their walking or seeing, or they're in a wheelchair, that kind of thing. The same thing goes, the same kind of looking at ADA goes if there is a member of the council who has an ADA impairment. They have some serious illness, or they can't come to the meeting because they're blind or deaf or whatever. Then you have to allow them some means to participate. Their participation as a council member is considered to be the number that will make the quorum. Any questions on the ADA? Are you having any issues with that? A person notifies you if they want some special accommodation, ADA, and you have rules that make the decision as to how you're going to do that.
Jenifer, the ADA rules for a member have to be put into a resolution or an ordinance, right? The parish has to set up those rules of how that procedure happens.
Yes.
And that needs to be done years ago, a couple years ago, right? It came out?
Say it again.
That law was that act was put in place a few years ago, right?
Yes.
For the members.
Yeah.
Now, the next piece is where we have to allow Jenifer Schaye to actively participate in the meeting,
Yes.
ask questions, all the things virtually.
Yes.
But it has to be a live participation, for lack of
Yes.
a better word.
Yes.
That, from my understanding, for a parish our size, which is under 35,000, is we have to have that in place by 2027. But some of the bigger parishes or municipalities have to have it in place by 2026. Is that correct?
I can't remember the dates in the statute, but they accommodate you and let you do alternative means until you can get to the point where you can have them participating. But what we're saying is, I think, the ADA, as it applies to a member, is some different because they're a member. They make the quorum, they have to be given some means to vote and to actively participate in the meeting. A person coming to the meeting who says, I'm blind, I need some help here with listening to the meeting, or I have some hearing impairment, that's a difference. You allow them to participate, but you're not they're not voting, but they're participating in the meeting, or you give them an alternative means. It is some different, but it's coming together with the same thing, because we have so many people now can do Zoom or go to meeting. It's much less difficult than it used to be. Another question?
Hi, Jennifer. I just want to get some clarification. If I understood you correctly, you said the minutes have to be published?
Yes.
And if so, minutes are normally not adopted until the next meeting.
Yeah.
So would that be
They say
after you've adopted the minutes at the
The
next
Attorney
meeting?
General says you still publish them within that time period, and then if you have to change it, you amend it.
If it's a weekly newspaper.
Yeah, I know. You
you
just do your best.
Do your best. Okay.
There's no laws on that right now, because so many newspapers have, I say, you have to publish it I don't say this, the law says, in the official journal. Well, some official journals are no longer there. So, they've gone to weekly or whatever. And there's really no laws that are addressing that yet. So you just do your best. You publish it when you can. The law says 10 days. You then have, within 20 days of that, you put it on your web. You have it at your meeting. And it's a summary. It's not a verbatim kind of thing.
So when you have that one hearing, at least one to discuss your budget for the upcoming year, you have to post the open meetings law for that meeting. Can you adopt your budget in that same meeting?
I'm going to talk about that when I talk about the
Okay.
budget.
All right, thank you.
But you can add, there are some rules there. Any other questions on open meetings? I love the questions, thank you.
Is it okay to publish our meeting on our website, or it has to be in a newspaper?
Both,
You can do
it
both?
has to be both.
It has to be both, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
How about I give you I got two more to do, Public Records and Local Government Budget Act. So how about I give you, say, I got 10:25, give you 5 minutes? 5 minutes? Okay. Imagine that I didn't get something perfect. I have to clarify all day long. Counting days, let's talk about open meetings. Open meetings, 24-hour notice. If you're going to have the meeting on Monday, 24-hour notice means, and Patrick's going to help me if I make a mistake because he's better at this than I. If you're going to have a meeting on Monday, 24-hour notice means Friday published, because you can't count Saturday and Sunday, all right? If you are doing something for a public bid situation, you are counting Saturday and Sunday because the statute doesn't tell you not to, okay? So that's it, I think, right, Patrick? Okay, everybody got that? So basically on open meetings, what everybody is saying is you're not going to do something that's going to be on a holiday. We're going to have a meeting on the 4th of July to raise everybody's water bill. Really? No. That's not going to happen. So you're going to have a meeting on July 5th that you advertised on July 3rd to raise everybody's water bill. That's okay. All right? We good? Let's talk about now public records law. That causes a lot of y'all a lot of issues, doesn't it? Because the curmudgeon comes in and wants 4,000 documents while you're trying to do your work. I feel your pain. Do you know how many questions the auditor gets, that says, I just had this one, I want the audits of every nonprofit entity that you, a quasi-public nonprofit, that you have done in the last 20 years? Now, that's I'm going to just say, it's a frickin' hard question. How many nonprofits have we done in the last 20 years, audits? The lady doesn't send us Christmas cards. She doesn't like us that ask that question. But guess what? We have a records retention policy that's approved by the Secretary of State, where those audits are considered to be public records, but permanent public records, and we have them all on our audit website. So when she asks us that question, I don't get mad at her. I don't say, why are you asking us that question? We say, and this is absolutely legal as a response to a public records question, it is posted on our website. The 20 years of audits are posted on our website. I can't find them, she says. Tommy, close your door, talk her through it, help her find it. That is the response we give to a public records. That's fine. But I can't ask her, why did you want that? Can I inquire as to why? Answer, no. Person appears, person says, identifies themselves. You can ask them to identify themselves, and they ask for the public record. You have it, but it's going to take you a few days to get it. Law says you have 5 days to produce it, or 5 days to tell them why you can't give it to them right now, or to tell them that we don't consider that to be a public record. Let's take an example. Person true life, appears at the auditor's office, says, I want a list of all of your management employees and what are their salaries. That's a public record. And we have it as a list. Do I have to give it to them? Absolutely. Jenifer Schaye, salary $100 a month. If you believe that, I got a bridge to sell you. But I put exactly on there Mr. Wagasback's salary and on down. Produce. Don't ask a question. Or the person ask it to you over the phone. Can they do that? Yes. Public records requests do not have to be written. Don't get yourself in that box where you tell them they have to give you a written request, because that's not the public records law. They have to make a request that you understand. You can ask them to please explain, but you can't say you must put it in writing. Does that make sense? So that answers our second question. May I charge the next fee to be charged for the record? I said make that in your rules of your counsel, that you know what fee you're going to charge, so you don't charge the curmudgeon $50 a page because you hate him, and me 5 cents a page. Can't do it. And what's the fee? The fee is your cost for producing that record. Look, if you are only going to have to press a button to give them that record, I wouldn't charge anything. But if you got to go to your files and you got to get them out of the files and it's going to take you some time, you're not charging. They don't allow you to charge for the time. But you can say, to produce that record, for the production of that record, I have to have some time, and it's going to cost $1 a page or whatever's reasonable. Make the rules ahead of time so that curmudgeon gets treated the same as a nice lady. Make sense? And who wins in a public records lawsuit? Here's a lawyer, me. You hire me because they've been harassing you, asking you for public records every week for the last 52 weeks. And on 52nd week, I ain't giving it to you. I'm tired. You hire me. I'm a really good lawyer. I go to court for you on that situation. Am I going to win? No. The public wins on public records requests, 99.9. In hotly contested elections, there will be a public records contest many times. Who wins? The person who asks for the record. Well, that's good. We keep records, I'm just making this up. We keep records for the last 100 years, says the clerk. I say, that's not a good idea. Nope, we want to do that. Okay. Curmudgeon comes in and asks for the records that you have from 1952. 52 forward, please. Do you have to give them to them? If you have them, it's a public record. That's horrible. It's horrible. It might cost you thousands of dollars, and you're not going to get that money from the curmudgeon. You know that. So what do? It's so important that you have what we call a records retention policy. That records retention policy, we will show you where all the forms are if you can't find them on the Secretary of State site, and you develop it, and you keep the records for a reasonable amount of years for what you do. We keep our records for personnel. We follow the federal law, and I think we keep them for 10 years plus, whatever it is. But I got a record. So if they come and ask for somebody who worked there 30 years ago, I don't have to have it. I say, records retention policy, I destroyed that record. Now, it means you have to figure out the records on the computer, how you're keeping them. It's a little bit of work, I'll tell you that. And they allow you an image exception, so you don't have to keep them in paper. It's a little bit of work. It's worthwhile. It keeps the curmudgeon stuff out of your hair. You have a policy. But if they come in, they just come in and they want the record, you have to give up the record. Are anything excluded from the public records law? Yes. Personal identifiable information, PII information. Personal identifiable information. What is that? It is my social security number. It is what I take out of my check for hospitalization. It's what I take out of my check for deferred comp. It's in my file that I have a certain disease. That they can't get. That you redact from anything. Does that make sense? So also any health information that complies with the HIPAA law. If you're a school board, anybody in here a school board? If you're a school board, then you know you have the federal regulations and laws concerning students and identifying students, and you have to follow that, and you're not going to give up those records. But the ordinary records, I'm in a town, they want to see the resolution that passed that raised my water bill. Do I have to show them that? Yes. Do I have to show them the public bid that we used and awarded for the construction of this building? Yes. Writing proprietary on something doesn't make it proprietary. Writing confidential doesn't make it confidential. You have to look at the law, but most things that you deal with, excluding personal identifiable information, health information, information on students, you have to produce. Okay? Any questions on the public records law? Okay. Ready? Local Government Budget Act. This is one that we get so many questions on, and I understand. Because it means that we're creating a legal document that is an estimate, did you hear me? Estimate of what we're going to spend and what we're going to collect in this year. Now, I'm here to tell you that in 2019, before COVID, people had no idea that COVID was going to happen and it was going to dramatically affect their expenditures and their revenues. No idea. Further back in our history, when Katrina happened in 2005, the people of Orleans and Jefferson and Rita, when Rita hit in those parishes in Calcasieu and Cameron, no idea. But I bring that up to just emphasize to you something I think people don't understand in the Local Government Budget Act. This is your best estimate. This is your best estimate. This is not something that's written in stone, but it is a legal document. And the first person in that, the important issues there are your planning, you're giving notice, public participation, appropriations. Now, what does that mean? Amendments, estimate, 5% rule, 50% rule. All of that, what does that mean? I got the questions that come from it, but let me just first talk about it. What it means is, it starts with the chief executive, the mayor, the head of the district, whomever, planning this budget. That budget then becomes available for everyone to look at. It's in the office. Statute requires that it be available for them to look at. Requires that it have on it two things, like a letter from the mayor or the chief executive saying, in summary, what is this about? It also requires that it have a side-by-side comparison of last year's budget to this year's budget. Okay? Thank you. So we have that. Who looks at it? Anybody wants to? Counsel looks at it? Yep. Curmudgeon looks at it? Yep. If it's a $500,000 budget or more, requires a public hearing. And that public hearing is supposed to be treated somewhat like a public meeting. That the chief executive comes. Does the council have to come? No. But at that public hearing, the budget is presented. People can say, I like that, I don't like that, I think you should take this or that out. If at the public hearing, it becomes so dramatically different, we recommend the mayor, the chief executive, go back to square one. But say it's pretty close. I know there was a question in the back. Can the public hearing happen on the same day as the public meeting to adopt the budget? Answer, yes. When you finish the public hearing, you can go into the public meeting. The budget must be passed by the legislative body. The legislative body is the board, the council, the aldermen, that group. If the budget doesn't get passed, then you don't have a budget for that year. And the statute defines when you have to have it. before the end of the year. It's the end of the year and we don't have a budget. That's horrible, right? Everybody hates each other. They won't vote on this budget. Can they amend the budget as presented at that public hearing? Yes, they can. If you're a Larson Act town, though, you can only amend it once at that hearing. You can't drastically change it. If you do, you have to go back to square one. Other groups can amend and amend and amend at that public meeting. But you can do that. But we couldn't even agree to amend it, says the councilman. We don't have a budget. Where are you? That's where the 50% rule comes in. You can only spend up to 50% of your last appropriated budget. We have $100 now in payroll. How much can we spend? $50. I can't transfer money into it. $50. That's impossible, says the councilman. Everybody's going to stay home. That's why you got to pass a budget. People have to come together. The 5% rule happens whenever you're in the midst of the budget and all of it says your expenditures are greater. It's not just a cash flow, they're greater than 5%. Your revenues are greater or less than you thought, less than 5%. I have to amend. Amendments of a 500,000 plus budget have to be a notice in writing by the head of the mayor, the head of the council, head of the entity, to everyone. If you amend your budget, if the budget, even as an estimate, is a real living document, you should not be in a problem, a 50% problem. Now sometimes, though, as I say that, I've been sitting here a long time, it happens that people get dug in. If you get dug in, you can't spend the people's money because you haven't appropriated the people's money. Then it's going to be not a government by the people, for the people, of the people. It's going to be a government in isolation because you're frozen. Don't get there or help your people not to. Let's quickly go to the Local Government Act questions. And that's my last thing, I think. Yep. Okay. All right. Is there a model budget that I can send you? No. Every entity is different. Are there certain categories? I can show you examples. If you call us and say, can you give me an example of a budget for a small town? We can help you with that. But I don't have a model. There's not. Is there a limit as to how many times a budget can be amended? No. Resolution here, resolution there, however you want to do it. And I think it's good that you amend it during the year because that means it's a living document. Too, I know I have this question, can we amend our prior year's budget after the year end? You could, but that's worthless. What does it mean? It means I'm trying to get the auditor to see what I did. Not good. You should, every year, have a report every year, every month, every meeting, have a report to the board, to the council, as to what your budget is. It's like a bank reconciliation. Let me tell you, I thought we were going to get this much in sales tax. We've gotten this much. I recommend that we amend the budget to account for that. I answered about the same day, 50% rule, 5% rule. I've told you what that is. The Local Government Budget Act for public entities must be followed. No question. If there's an exception, it has to be written into the statute. I can go to my summary. Say this. Try to integrate your work of all of these laws together. How do you do that? I think simply by remembering that you are a trustee and that it's public money. I say it is very important. You say, what? Silos? You cannot work in isolation. A foxhole's good. A grouping of people is good. That we know what each other's doing. That we have the same, if you understand this, I use it a lot in my work, that we have the same culture. That we're making decisions together. I might not get everything I want, but I understand why we're doing it in this particular town. And openness to change, I think, openness to realizing the law has changed, openness to realizing maybe your entity has changed is critical. The words that'll kill people, that'll send them to not enjoy anything is, why are we doing this? We've always done it this way. That just drives me crazy. We've always done it this way. Another thing is that why are you changing? Why are you changing? The law changed. What I said last year, I can't say this year. Sorry. But I changed. Or I thought it out differently. There's nothing wrong with that. All of it comes down to fiduciary responsibilities, trustee. All these laws that you deal with, you might not be the mayor, you might not be the councilman, you might be, but regardless, if you're in public sector or a quasi-public sector, you are a trustee of public money, public assets. And as that happens, it makes you different than the person who works for Walgreens. Not better, different, just different. If I had my private law office, Happy would come to work with me every day. He'd be a pain in the backside sometimes, but I like to have him there. I work in a public entity, it's not allowed. So you develop what's allowed in a public entity and what isn't, because it's public. It's public. I'm so, I think I talked to so many people like all of you, or maybe I've talked to you, that I so admire what you do on a daily basis. I so think that that's what keeps us as a society. We have a lot of issues these days. Public websites say there are a whole lot of issues. Newspaper and commentaries say there are issues. But there are also a lot of people like you who are trying hard to get it right. The auditor's office, the trusted advisor, and we take that on in the legal group, is that I don't want you to have an audit finding, but more importantly, I want you to enjoy your job and your community is better. So that said, I thank you.